so glad you're back.
Thank you.
Well, this business with detaining the individual in New York City, I've seen references to the Red Scare in the 1950s. No, people need to go back to the first Red Scare after World War I, when the Palmer raids happened, which were exclusively targeting immigrants for their anarchist revolutionary tendencies and just deporting them. Remember that? Mitchell Palmer was our Attorney General.
This wasn't that during the Harding administration? Or was that during Wilson's administration?
It was still the Democrats, 1919, 1920. It was like only 4 months.
November, so it was Woodrow Wilson. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It was a Democratic Party Attorney General, Mr. Palmer, who led his name to this. But anyway, thousands of folks who were immigrants and had the wrong political leanings and voices were detained, and a couple of thousand were actually sent overseas. The way I learned it in school, this was the genesis of J. Edgar Hoover and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, arising from an earlier entity, and then the ACLU and the cases that fought these detentions. Everybody got in on the rules. I mean, there were specific rules that anybody with anarchist leanings could be specifically deported from the United States. That was before World War I, because anarchists were the leading voice of anti-capitalist exploitation in our country.
Well, there were a lot of anarchists in the labor movement at that time too, because unions had not yet been legalized.
Oh, right, and another main target was the International Workers of the World.
Right, the Wobblies.
The union here is particularly strong in our Northwest, that were as adamantly anti-war, anti-entrance into World War I. And they were broken by the Wilson administration. But there were still survivors, and you could deport them. And as you said, there are so many people in this country with actual green cards who are vulnerable. But the funny thing is that this Palmer person overreached and became eventually, by the early 20s, 21, 22, an object of ridicule, because he was predicting overthrow of our government on May Day, like 1921 or 1922, and it didn't happen. But there were specific laws to enable the deportation of these people, which were, for the most part, overturned when they were actually adjudicated, and many of them could come back. But the most famous name in this whole story? Emma Goldman, the radical anarchist, was actually deported in the first wave. Never came back to this country till her death. And she's interred somewhere in Chicago because her radicalization happened with the Haymarket affair back in the late 1880s.
Yeah.
With that, who bombed the police, who were raiding a labor movement meeting? A bomb went off. Nobody knows. Nobody ever proved it, but 8 people were convicted. 8 Americans were convicted. 4 of them actually were hanged. I don't know about the rest of them. It was a worldwide scandal. People should look this up. This is really analogous.
Susan, more proof that we have the smartest listeners in the world of any program on Earth. Thank you for the history lesson. I was vaguely aware of the Palmer raids. I remember reading about them, decades ago. But thank you for bringing it all to the fore. I really appreciate it.